How can planning notes be helpful in writing an essay? In this lesson, you will learn how to develop a paragraph by using your planning notes. Our prompt is based on Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. Frederick Douglass had the opportunity to interact with many people. Examine the text closely. How was Frederick's life impacted by these other characters? Write an informative essay to convey your ideas about this question. Let's review the writing process. When responding to an essay prompt about literature, the first step is to read closely and analyze the text. Step 2 is to generate ideas and make a preliminary plan for the writing assignment. Step 3 involves drafting the essay and systematically reviewing and revising to prepare your work for Step 4, where you edit for conventions and publish. In this lesson, we will be working on Step 3, specifically creating a draft for one of the paragraphs in the essay. Here are the steps in our core lesson. Step 1, review your planning notes. Decide on a starting point for drafting your paragraph. Step 2, craft a beginning sentence to introduce the topic of your paragraph. Step 3, review your notes for relevant supporting details. Develop sentences that include these details. And Step 4, ask yourself, how can I summarize my ideas? Craft a concluding sentence for your paragraph. Let's start with Step 1. Review your planning notes. Decide on a starting point for drafting your paragraph. I need to keep in mind that my task is to explain how Frederick's life was impacted by the characters with whom he interacted. I remember that Master Hugh is marked off because there's very little information about him. I also know that I was able to find evidence and make notes about all the others in my list. And I'm thinking that I probably want to start with Mistress Hugh because she is the first one of these characters mentioned in the narrative. Now that I've decided on my starting point, I can move to Step 2. Craft a beginning sentence to introduce the topic of your paragraph. I need to accomplish two tasks with this sentence. First, I need to introduce Mistress Hugh as the character I will be discussing in the paragraph. And second, I need to somehow connect to and remind the reader of the topic. I think I can do both of those things with this sentence. Mistress Hugh had a significant impact upon the life of Frederick Douglass. This will be my topic sentence. Since I have the topic sentence, I can move on to Step 3. Review your notes for relevant supporting details. Develop sentences that include these details. Here are my notes about Mistress Hugh. I know that the most important thing about Mistress Hugh is that she started to teach Frederick to read. I also know that she stopped those lessons. I know what I need to do. I need to include this information as details about Mistress Hugh. I need to give the reader enough background information to understand the nature of the interaction between Frederick and Mistress Hugh. I don't want to include unnecessary details, but I do want to give enough so that the ideas and sequence of events are logically connected. My topic sentence was Mistress Hugh had a significant impact upon the life of Frederick Douglass. I will add sentences with details now. When he first came to live with the Hugh family, Mistress Hugh treated him very kindly. One thing she did was to begin to teach Frederick the alphabet. However, her husband soon advised that it was not a good idea to teach a slave to read. Upon receiving this advice, Mistress Hugh stopped the lessons. The first sentence gives background information for the reader. The next sentence tells specifically how Mistress Hugh interacted with Frederick. The next sentence gives more background information and sets the stage for the last sentence, which gives more specific information about the interaction between Mistress Hugh and Frederick. I believe at this point that I'm ready to move on to the final step of the process for writing a paragraph. Ask yourself, how can I summarize my ideas? Craft a concluding sentence for your paragraph. Again, I remember my notes about Mistress Hugh. There was a quote that I thought was really great because it explained from Frederick's own perspective how much Mistress Hugh had impacted his life. I recorded part of the quote and made a note to myself to include it in my essay. I will look back at the text and record the entire quote so that I have it down correctly. Mistress, in teaching me the alphabet, had given me the inch, and no precaution could prevent me from taking the L. This sounds very much like a quote we might hear today, give him an inch and he will take a mile, meaning that once something is started, it's hard to stop it. I want to end my paragraph by using this quote. I'm thinking that in order to do this, I have to do a bit more explanation about this part that says no precaution could prevent me. If the reader does not know about the precautions Mistress Hugh took to prevent Frederick from reading, this quote won't make as much sense. As I begin, I'm thinking about where I left off. I left off with a sentence about Mistress Hugh stopping the lessons. Now I need to give some background information, and then it will be fine for me to end with the quote. So I will do that in this way. She, referring back to Mistress Hugh, also went to great lengths to be sure that Frederick did not have access to newspapers and books. In spite of this, Frederick learned to read. Frederick's own words express the impact Mistress Hugh had upon his life. And here's where I can enter the quote. Mistress, in teaching me the alphabet, had given me the inch, and no precaution could prevent me from taking the L. The first two sentences explain enough to set up the quote and allow me to move quickly to using it at the end of the paragraph. I can use this same process to create the drafts for my other paragraphs in the essay. Here's what the final paragraph looks like. The first sentence is my topic sentence, and then I have several sentences where I took details from my notes, and then the final sentence is where I summarize my ideas. Here are the steps in our core lesson. Step 1, review your planning notes, decide on a starting point for drafting your paragraph. Step 2, craft a beginning sentence to introduce the topic of your paragraph. Step 3, review your notes for relevant supporting details, develop sentences that include these details, and Step 4, ask yourself, how can I summarize my ideas? Craft a concluding sentence for your paragraph. In this lesson, you have learned how to develop a paragraph by using your planning notes.